Universe Makers, First Scroll, written and narrated by C. Taylor. Please review the description for trigger warnings to make sure this is content that you are comfortable with. Chapter 1. Hannah, you always get cranky with me if I let you sleep in, so hurry up, Catherine called over the intercom. Hannah looked at her clock as she fastened her pleated plaid skirt. Catherine was right. Hannah needed to move faster. She hated feeling rushed, but that's what she got for hitting the snooze button twice. The hook on her skirt finally slipped into place. The zipper went up easily. She pulled her prep school jacket on and stepped in front of the mirror. Her movements knocked her heavy glasses down her crooked nose. Hannah winced, stopped adjusting the jacket, and quickly slipped the wide frame back into place to hide the puckered and jagged scar that ran from just below her right temple all the way to her eye. With the glasses back in place, she tried to avoid noticing that her misshapen eye was now magnified by the thick lenses. She had her long, straight, brown hair parted to one side and let it hang in her face to help hide the old injury. Before her rebellious mind could start replaying the incident that caused the scars, she turned her attention back to her jacket. She rolled her shoulders to make sure it was settled into place, carefully inspected her white, collared, button-down shirt, and pulled it until all the buttons were in a perfectly straight line. She straightened the plaid skirt and made sure the shirt was tucked in evenly all around her. Once everything was in place, she smoothed the Wyndham preparatory crest to make sure it showed clearly on her left side. After one last scan to make sure her uniform is in order, she turned to look at the rest of her room and started going through her list. Open backpack at her desk, she counted to make sure all books she brought with her were inside. Check. Massive 4-poster bed made? Check. Perfectly polished hardwood floors cleared of all her weekend debris? Check. She scanned the large chest of drawers at the far wall to make sure all drawers were closed. Check. Same thing with the smaller chest of drawers to her right. Check. The dresser next to her bathroom door, drawers closed, and items tidy on top. Check. Desk in front of her bed, she glanced to make sure her most precious things were all in their place, and froze. Something was missing. Hannah's heart started to beat faster as her eyes scanned the floor around her desk, then continued around the room and cursed. She just scanned everything in sight and would have noticed already if it was somewhere obvious. Where was it? She rushed to her huge attached bathroom and scanned everything she could quickly. Nothing. Repeated a quick scan when she ran to her walk-in closet. The floor was clear. It wasn't on any of the shelves either. Between the 3 rooms, there were way too many drawers, cabinets, and hidden nooks to check in the next. Hannah checked the clock again. 5 minutes? Panic started to make her hand shake. She couldn't leave until she knew it was safe. Think, Hannah. When did you last see it? She ordered herself, but a rising panic scattered her thoughts in a million different directions. Hannah stopped moving, forced herself to take a deep, calming breath, closed her eyes, and waited for her mind to quiet. Then she asked the question again. When did you last see it? A clear memory popped into her head, and Hannah smiled in relief. She'd reached for it last night, held it for an added push when she thought she was too tired to finish her homework. Fuzzy memories followed after she finally finished her last paper and dragged herself to bed. It was still in her hand. Her eyes shot open. She ran out of the closet and back to the bed to scan its surface. The comforters were too thick and fluffy to give away its location. She'd have to go in. She checked the clock and wanted to curse again. There was no time to remake it before she had to leave. Screw it. It would make Catherine happy, and there was no way she'd be able to leave until it was safely back where it belonged. With one fast motion, Hannah grabbed the top corner of the covers and yanked them off. A mountain of decorative pillows that sat on top scattered across the bed and onto the floor. Instant relief made her feel lightheaded. She teetered on her heels a moment as tears started to fill her eyes. The small wood horse lay peacefully right in the middle of the massive mattress. She moved slower this time as she leaned over and gently picked it up. The figurine was old, worn, scratched. Its once thick and wavy mane was now smooth with just faint outlines of its curls. Part of its tail was chipped. One leg was thinner than the other, since that's how she carried it when she was a small girl. She could barely remember the other details her father had carved into the small creature. But he'd given it to her when she was 2 years old, and she hadn't always been as careful with it as she was now. Memories flashed in her mind before she could stop them. Her father's smile, his laugh, his strong arms holding her when she was frightened. That held her tight to his chest as she sat in front of him when she was too young to ride horses by herself. She kissed the horse on top of its head, gently brushed the tear off that fell on its mane as she turned around. Hannah walked back over to her desk and carefully placed the horse back where it belonged, next to the small, ornate perfume bottle. Her finger rubbed over the beautiful bottle before she could stop it. Echoes of her mother cheerfully singing, "You Are My Sunshine," rang through her head the moment she touched it. Images flashed: the small, bright farmhouse, her tire swing out front, her chubby baby sister learning to walk. Hannah jerked her hand away and took a deep breath. Time wasted feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to make you into somebody they'd be proud of. She scolded herself as she brushed away the tears, forced the memories out of her head, and got back to work. She grabbed her tablet and scanned through all her assignments. Calculus assignment complete, theology assignment complete, English report complete, microeconomics assignment complete, French assignment complete. She checked her master list to make sure all assignments were present and in the right order, then slid the tablet into the front pocket of her pack. She hefted the heavy bag onto one shoulder and was out of the room before she was able to get the zipper completely closed. Hannah rushed down the long hall, turned to the right, and hurried down 3 more long halls before she finally made it to the wide main staircase. Her feet flew down the stairs, made a right. 3 rooms later, she arrived in the breakfast room. Out of breath, she dropped her pack with relief and slid into her chair at the table. Well, it's nice to see you're still alive. Of course, if anything had happened to you this weekend, I would have no way of knowing until this ungodly hour, Catherine gently scolded. Hannah couldn't stop her half smile from showing on her face. At the ungodly hour of 4:30 a.m., Catherine was still perfectly dressed in freshly pressed beige slacks and a soft pink belted sweater. Her short, currently brown hair was attractively flipped up this time. Hannah was also sure there wouldn't be a single flaw with her makeup. Only her puffy eyes were ever proof of Catherine's struggle with the hour. I had a lot of homework to do, Hannah explained the reason she hadn't left her room for yet another entire weekend. You always have a lot of homework, Catherine complained as she leaned toward her over the table and scowled. Hannah, you are too young to be spending all your time studying. You need to get out and have some fun. Hannah's spoon froze just in front of her mouth. She fought the strong desire to quickly pop the delicious-looking grapefruit segment into her mouth, but Catherine had finished her sentence. The proper thing to do would be to comment before being selfish, she reminded herself and reluctantly lowered the spoon. I'll have fun once I've proven I can successfully run great-grandfather Mayshaw's company, she defended herself, and quickly slipped the spoonful in her mouth before Catherine could say anything else. Holy moly, it was better than she thought, and it took all her control to keep it to herself. It wasn't proper to show pleasure when eating. That was one of the first things Catherine had taught her when they brought her here. But their cook made that a constant struggle. Hannah, I've told you you don't have to worry about that. Grandfather Mayshaw wanted the company to stay in the family, but understood it was a man's work. When he realized I was the only grandchild left, he simply made sure I married someone capable of handling the responsibility. I'm more than prepared to do the same for you. I know you are, Catherine, and I still might need your help on that, but I really want to try and do this on my own, Hannah answered, squelching a frown as her spoon ran along the empty bowl. Had she really eaten that fast? Catherine leaned back and let her shoulders drop, giving up yet again. Well, you work yourself as hard as any corporate executive. Who knows, maybe you'll prove every Mayshaw wrong, she added with a little wink and a slight smile. Hannah quickly looked back at her food before Catherine's smile woke up too many memories of her mother again. That's the plan, Hannah forced out through a throat that had already started to tighten with emotion. Catherine laughed softly and shook her head. I really thought having a daughter would be much more fun. Other than our trip last summer, it's practically the same as before we found you. Guilt pinched Hannah's stomach. She would still be in foster care if Catherine hadn't searched so hard for her. She owed them almost as much as she owed the family that she lost. Hannah wiped her mouth and quietly pulled the tablet back out of her backpack. She tapped her planner app and scanned through several pages before she finally stopped. She took a few moments longer to see if there were any other options. There weren't. "Can you make it into the city Wednesday?" she offered before taking the first bite of the omelet that was just placed in front of her, and barely stopped her eyes from rolling to the back of her head at the magical combination their cook had put together that morning. Would she ever get used to how good the food was here? Catherine's face brightened with a mischievous smile. "Am I being summoned by the school administrators because of some disciplinary situation you've gotten yourself into?" she asked. "No, of course not." "Well, that's too bad." Her smile fell. She looked back at her food. "So why would I need to come to your school this time? Some UN summit you need me to get you into, or panel discussion on world economic affairs you want to see?" the interrogation continued. "I have 3 hours available that evening," Hannah started. "For what?" Catherine interrupted cautiously. Hannah sighed silently again before answering and hoped she wouldn't regret this offer. "Anything you want." There was a pause, like time stood still or Catherine was frozen in place. Hannah wasn't sure Catherine had heard her, but she didn't want to say it again. Finally, Catherine's head moved slightly to the left. "Anything?" she asked tentatively. Hannah didn't trust that her voice wouldn't betray her reluctance, so she just nodded. Another pause. "Shopping?" Catherine asked a little stronger this time. Again, Hannah nodded. "Clothes shopping?" This time her eyes squinted suspiciously. Hannah successfully stifled a groan and nodded again. Catherine looked as if she knew she was about to push her luck, but she asked anyway. "Plastic surgeon shopping?" Yep, she was definitely going to regret the offer. Sitting in front of a snobby plastic surgeon and watching his face flinch at her scars was not her idea of fun. As much as she hated being disfigured, the scars also provided a certain level of protection against unwanted attention. Hannah took a deep breath, looked back at her food, and thought a moment. The work would have to wait until her Christmas break, so she had a little time. Catherine had been begging her for this for months. It would mean a lot to her. Hannah finally raised a faint smile and answered, "Yep, anything you want, for 3 whole hours, Wednesday evening, starting at 4." "Oh, I knew being a mother would be fun," Catherine squealed and clapped her hands excitedly. "I'll start booking appointments today and pick you up at 4 o'clock sharp." "Yay!" Hannah added and hoped it didn't sound as sarcastic as it felt. Catherine's personal assistant, Marguerite, tapped Catherine on the shoulder and pointed at her watch. "Oh, now comes the not so fun part. Because you keep telling me that part of being a mother is being mean to your child, I have to tell you to get your butt moving before you're late," she said in a fake stern tone, then asked with a look of disgust, "Did my cousin really use the word butt?" Hannah nearly lost the last of the omelet she just shoved into her mouth from the surprised laugh at Catherine questioning the word butt. She swallowed down most of it and grabbed her water to help with the rest. "Yes, she did, but you don't have to use her exact words." "Whatever you're comfortable with is fine, and I didn't say mean. I said strict. Good parents are strict with their children. Thank you for the reminder, Catherine. The food around here just about makes me forget everything else," she added and grabbed her bag. Catherine stood to walk Hannah out to the waiting limo. "Tushy. I think I'm comfortable with Tushy. How was my tone? Too harsh?" she asked. Hannah smiled again. "Just harsh enough," she assured. Catherine frowned and shook her head. "This parenting thing is hard. Really, I just want to send you back upstairs to bed, both of us sleep until noon, and then go shopping. Paris, maybe. There's this amazing little shop hidden back off." Catherine continued talking as they passed into the foyer on their way to the front door. She paused only when Marguerite passed her an envelope. "Thank you, Marguerite," she said quickly before giving the envelope to Hannah. "Here you go, Hannah. Anything you need this week should be covered in there." Hannah pulled her pack over a second shoulder so she could use both hands to look through the envelope. A thick stack of $100 bills, along with Catherine's usual Wyndham preparatory tip of the week, were all inside. She pulled back the top flap of the paper and found this week's topic was titled Guarantee a 100% on your next paper, followed by a list of specialists on her class subjects with dollar amounts next to their names. Catherine! Just a suggestion in case you want to have a relaxing or fun evening now and then. I went to that school too and know a lot of ways you could still get great grades without working yourself to death. It's cheating. Is it cheating or just a creative use of your intellect, resources, and development of a different skill set? Catherine theorized. It's cheating, Hannah confirmed, but laughed at Catherine's resourceful mind. Outside, she was a carefree and frivolous corporate wife and heiress. Underneath, Hannah could see a determination to do whatever it took to get the things she wanted for herself and those she cared about. I can't believe Grandfather Mayshaw didn't think you could run the company. He obviously didn't know you very well, Hannah mentioned as they walked. Of course, the FBI would probably be investigating the company by now if you had. Good news is they'd never be able to find anything. Catherine laughed. The cheerful sound had Hannah fighting memories of her mother again. Catherine's arm looped through Hannah's, and she squeezed slightly as they walked. The contact made Hannah's eyes burn as the tears threatened to flow the way they always did whenever Catherine was near. She instinctively stiffened her back with determination to hold the emotions at bay. The massive front door was opened for them by an attendant as they passed through in silence that wasn't broken until they approached the car. I'm not saying you have to use the money for that. Use it for whatever you want. Hannah wanted to hand the envelope back, but she knew it wouldn't do any good. You know what I always do with it, she said. I know. Soup kitchens, homeless shelters, outreach programs. I swear you make the rest of us look so shallow, Catherine grumbled. Hannah paused at the open door of the limo. Then why do you keep giving them to me? She asked, truly confused. Catherine looked at Hannah. Hannah held her gaze as long as she could until she couldn't keep the tears that continued to gather there from spilling down her face and had to look away. That same moment, Catherine hugged Hannah close. Because you let me be a part of so little of your life, I have to do something. Guilt pinched Hannah's stomach again. She hugged Catherine back as long as she could before the wall holding back a monsoon of emotion started to crack and she had to pull away. Wednesday, 4 p.m. I won't be late, she promised and climbed into the limo. The door closed quickly. Thankful no one could see as her lip quivered or how her breath caught with stubborn sobs, she grabbed her backpack and started pulling out her books. Studying always reined in her inconvenient emotions. Moments later, the car pulled forward. Hannah couldn't look back, but she knew Catherine would be watching her leave. By the time the driver made his way down the long, winding driveway, past the iron gates, and pulled onto the public road, Hannah had her French book out, headphones in her ears to practice, desperate to make her brain understand the beautiful language.